Welcome to Elevate Your Life and Soul. I'm your host, Marla Kennedy, life coach, mama, and spiritual soul seeker. Each week, this podcast will bring you interviews, stories, and mentoring so you can truly know your value, know your worth, and elevate all areas of your life. Let's rise together. Hi, Kari. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
My pleasure, Mala. I'm doing pretty well today. It's my work day, which I get twice a week because I'm a busy mom and I love working and I love doing podcasts and I love talking to you. So it's a good day.
Amazing. And before we get in, I'd just love to ask you, how do you like to start your day?
Oh, good question. Well, it depends what day. So something I love about how motherhood makes you efficient. And of course, I will be talking a lot about motherhood because that's my jam in life. It's what I do as a coach. So every day for me has to be different because I have so many things on the docket with such efficiency of time that I've literally collated what my weekly needs are. And every day I have to switch them, and every week I have to switch them. So every day is different. But the one thing that I keep consistent is I sleep in.
Yeah.
But because it's the only time my husband is really like fully on as the main parent. So that's a gift that my husband gives me every morning.
Yeah.
And I snuggle my kid, and then my husband will run in and we'll snuggle my kids. And then we will just have a very mundane, beautiful family morning,
Oh, lovely.
I make hot water with lemon, and I have a little ritual around blessing my water. That's something I do every single day. Because I think water is like the God of our existence, because it's life. And so I appreciate it every day. And I do lately I've been doing my practices that you know about because you've been working with me on those practices.
Yeah.
So I do centering, I do attention training practices. But those are like literally the most consistent things, is waking up, snuggling my kids, drinking my hot water and blessing it, and doing those practices. And then every other day is different. It might be an appointment, it might be yoga, it might be working, it might be eating breakfast and watching some crap TV that just like I love and then I never get to watch. It really depends. So that's my answer.
Oh, I love that. I'm the opposite. I'm a big early riser. So
I wish.
I just love getting up early. So I don't know why.
I've always wanted to be a morning person. I am so not. I mean, like, I can get 11 hours of sleep, and if someone wakes me up at 6 a.m., I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. It's rough.
Yeah. So what compelled you to become a coach?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, the work itself, and it was a very specific body of work. This was, 11 years ago when I was 27. Jeez. No. It wasn't 11 years ago. It was 10 years ago. No, 11 years ago. Sorry. I was 27. I did a vision quest, which is fasting in the wilderness for 3 days and 3 nights. It's a rites of passage ceremony that my dad had done when I was 16. And I always knew I wanted to do it. And for some reason at 27, I was called to do it. And I went out on this really epic journey and was completely changed. And when we do this journey, we come back to our community and we share it. And the women hold circle and listen to our stories and reflect them. And I was one of 2 groups that went out that year, which was very rare. It was usually just 1 group per year. And the second group that came out, I got to hear their stories because I had just fasted before them. And this one woman who I fell in love with immediately has been a great friend ever since. She was like, Kari, you would love this work by this man named Scott Cody. And he has a program called the Art of Leadership Mastery. And I think that you, in particular, would just adore this work. And then she proceeded to tell me that it costs $10,000 to join this program. And I like laughed in her face at the time. I was like, 10,000, what do you think? Like what? Like I'm a millionaire? Like I can't afford $10,000. You know, I had no idea about coaching and like the investments and all the things. So I kind of like shrugged it off. And then the next year she invited me to her graduation. And it's not really like, you know, like landmarking or landmark, like you go to graduation to kind of get sold to get in. It's not really like that. It's kind of like we would go just to support them and witness them on the completion of their journey. And when I saw these people speak about their journey in that course, I just knew like, I have to do this. Like whatever these people did, whatever Kool-Aid they drank, like I got to have some of this. And so I went up to the man who led it, Scott Cody, and I said, I'm going to do this. Like, I really want to do it. And he's like, great. And he kind of like, didn't really pay that much attention to me. And then I remember just like writing him a letter and saying, I don't know how I'm going to afford this, but you know, I was like making 50 grand a year as like a program administrator at the time. Yeah. And I wrote him letters. I asked him how I could make it happen. And he was actually so inspired by my commitment to like fuel this work that he ended up really working with me and like helping me figure out how to produce the money through my work. They gave me a scholarship through my work. I worked off some of it. He gave me a scholarship also. And then I paid a lot of money over a long time.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. And as soon as I did this program, it broke me open. It was embodied leadership. So it was about how you can form your mind, body, and spirit to literally be a living representation of what you're committed to in your life. And he taught me everything I know about commitment and leadership. And I was so in love with his program. It was a 6-month program, and it was all in person, and which is rare these days. And that course at the end, I asked if he would be my mentor, because I said, this is the work I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I can't believe how changed I am. And I feel like this is the one thing that I've been looking for, you know, as far as purpose goes. And so he agreed, and he agreed to be my mentor. And I did that program 3 more times to just be a master, you know, like practice mastery in that work. And then I coached it when I was pregnant. And then when I had my son, that was sort of a whole new chapter in my call as a coach. And that's when I kind of actually turned all of my attention to working with mothers. So it's still, everything I teach to this day is from Scott, and I love him, and he's the most incredible coach and is such an incredible man. And he taught that program for NASA for like 9 years, won awards.
Wow.
And he brought it to like the regular people, you know, and I got to do it. And I feel really honored that I got to do it that many times. And then I got to work under him. So that's how I fell in love with it, in this program, with this work, with this man. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so amazing. And so what is your mission?
Well, simply put, it's I'm a commitment to a legacy of empowered moms leading the next 7 generations. You know, I think we're in this time where we're all looking at how can we basically save ourselves from extinction.
Yeah.
You know, the world is like really interesting right now, like such a precarious place. And we all came here at this time to be at the precipice of like, where are we going as a human race? And it, you know, what are we up to? What challenges are we up to? And how can we be leaders to really, you know, preserve ourselves, like at the end of the day. And the way I kind of see myself saving the world, quote unquote, in my own doing and being is by really supporting the whole matrilineal power system. Basically, like how I'm in such a deep study of how matriarchy and motherhood can be a space that is so empowered, that level of nurturance that we can tap into, and the joy and the peacefulness and the wonder we can feel in the growth of motherhood can be translated into how we actually treat each other and this planet, and how our children are raised in a good way where we don't experience as much trauma, and like our nervous systems aren't as taxed, and we're actually putting presence above productivity and all these different things. And so this mission is also just to like support support mothers in a culture that has not provided a lot of village or support for what it takes to be in a postnatal state. Like, we don't have the mental health, the physical well-being, all of the vitality that is actually needed for us to evolve in our vision of what motherhood can look like. And so I'm really like in my own mind, a revolutionary around like how this can be held and how we can really support women moving forward in more powerful ways in their mothering.
Beautiful. And I've never experienced seeing any other people doing the work that like you're doing it, and it's been already, you know, working with you has been so transformational and supportive for me. It's just
Thanks,
beautiful
Mama.
work and so important.
Thank
And
you.
so what does fearlessly living in your raw truth mean to you?
Well, you know, a while back I did this this course with Alexi Panos, which maybe some of the listeners know who that is. She's an incredible leader and a good friend of mine. And she's asked this really profound question about our business, which is really who we are. You know, like I was always told, like, our career isn't like this thing out there called our career. It's actually just who we're being in our community and how we're viewed based on how we're showing up, you know? And so she asked, like, what are the top 3 values that you have in your business? And I was like, wow, I never really answered this question for myself. And what I came up with was raw truth, community, and fun. The fun part I'm still working on in all areas of my life. Like, I'm such a Scorpio. I'm so damn serious. But fun is like the next generation of like what I'm exploring. But community for sure. I mean, my whole life is based on the precipice of like, what if we had the village? But number 1 was always raw truth. And the reason for this is because when I had my son, that whole story is for another podcast. It has been on many other podcasts, but that was a very traumatic time for me, my firstborn. Mostly because of just expectation of what I thought it would look like to be a mother, to, you know, what motherhood would feel and look like, etc. But I was so ashamed that I hadn't lived up to this dream that I was holding around what motherhood was supposed to look like. And that was a place where I wasn't really able to forgive myself very easily. And it's taken years to even get to the place that I've gotten to now with it. And there's still areas I'm still working on forgiving. But one thing I knew was that if I was actually going to serve in this area and be valuable in serving this area, I had to go down all of the taboo roads of what women are embarrassed to talk about, ashamed to talk about, kind of keep to themselves, or don't want to call out about motherhood, and just put it all out there. And not in a way of like, I'm complaining about my life and here's another post about that, but more in a way of like, hey, this is happening to me, you too. And honestly, it's the one way that I've called in the tribe that I have around working with moms and the women who, you know, I don't want to say follow me, I want to say run with me, you know, like a wolf pack, because like we're all on the same page. Like, I'm not leading anything they don't know about. I learn more from the moms I coach than they learn from me sometimes. And I think living in that level of truth has just literally freed me. And when I first, going back to the full circle of the question you asked of how I fell in love with coaching, the very first coaching program I did with Scott, my commitment was, I'm a commitment to self-trust. And the one thing I had to stop doing was being someone new for every person I met in order to fit into whatever box they held for me so that I could belong. And the same thing is true with motherhood. It's like, it can be so alienating if we don't check all these boxes of like, oh, I have it, I'm handling it, I'm the boss mom, I'm holding it all, I can have it all the myths that just really make us suffer sometimes. And so I realized that if I was holding shame and I wasn't speaking my shame and I wasn't sharing that shame on a very public and visceral level, then I was not free. And so I want to give permission to all of these other moms out there to say, yeah, like I'm there too. And my kid did this the other day. And the more I do it, the less judgment I feel on myself. And the more I see these other women getting freed as well. And so that's just huge to me. Like, I don't ever want to lie. I don't like hop into my programs, and like, that's some, you've heard me, definitely share. I don't go in there and just like process all the things I need to process, because that's not really the leader I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I process those things in the way I need to, with who I need to process them with, but I do share candidly if something's also happening with me that it is relatable, so that there's not this like guru thing happening that is basically separating women from their own self-worth and making them feel like they're not enough. So I think that's both of those, all of those aspects is the importance of truth. Is like, the truth will set you free. I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's so true. And so it's really a gift to myself more than anything, and the permission for women to gift themselves the same.
And I mean, I speak from experience that I was struggling with something in this program around feeding my little one, and you gave an example of something that gave me permission to take the pressure off myself in that, and I just felt this weight shift.
Oh,
Because
good.
like, it was amazing. It was amazing because it's something that even since my first son I've held on to, like, this shame around and this guilt around, and yeah, seeing someone else that has like been in that situation and experienced that and gave me the permission. It was huge. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And can I share what it's about, or is that
Yeah,
personal for you?
of course, absolutely.
Yeah. We were just having a back and forth about breastfeeding and formula feeding, and like how the whole breast is best slogan can really be super triggering, because like we're both breastfeeders and we're doing our best to breastfeed, but as many of you moms might know out there, breastfeeding is its own journey with its own hardships, and it's so gnarly. And sometimes we just can't produce at the level we need to produce, meaning like not just with milk, but like keeping up with breastfeeding. It's hard. And so, I was like, yeah, if I give my kid formula, and, like I still give my kid formula, and I supplement and I breastfeed as best I can, and I do my best in both areas. And it's just like, what a damn relief for like formula to not be this like, like horrifically evil syrup that we're like giving our child to like poison their whole identity or whatever, it's like, it's funny how the birth world can like want to create things for us to get back to the natural and to the elemental, and what a great intention that is. And then like how much shame can be created in that process. It's so interesting.
It's
In
so
the birth world, like home birth versus C-section birth versus formula versus breastfeeding, is just like, oh my God, as if we're all supposed to have the same, journey, or there's like one great way to do it. It's just hilarious to me.
Yeah, it is. And I've noticed myself go out, and because I solely express, so I've noticed myself go out with a bottle and feel shame because I'm not like, don't have my like little girl on me,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Right. And then in some circles you go out and breastfeed and people are like, cover yourself up. It's like, there's like no winning,
No, there's not.
But yeah, I mean, I think if you are taking care of your child, you're winning.
Yeah.
Like, and you're such a beautiful mom. Your kids are
Thank
so adorable and they
Thank
look
you.
very happy to me. So I think you're probably doing a bang up job.
Thank you. So what would you say to someone who's like feeling resistance or anxiety or nervousness about showing up, like living their raw truths?
I mean, it's a very confronting thing. I'm not really proposing that living your raw truth all the time is easy. Like there's times where I sit and I'm just like, oh God, should I share this? Or is this like, who's this going to set off? And like, what's the thing that's going to come back with this? And, or will I lose credibility? Like as a coach for mothers, if I just tell someone like how I like literally had, a breakdown and no idea what I'm doing, and then I remember I'm not a parent coach. I never claimed to be, you
Yeah.
know? And I also have to remember that like the more that I can touch into like the humanity of our experiences in the area that I'm really committed to, like the better leader I am. So I think it really comes back to really asking oneself, like, what are you committed to in your life? You know,
Mm.
because sometimes like there, you know, I know someone who's so committed to the earth. She's like an earth guardian, a great friend of mine. Um, and she's great with recycling and like composting, all these things, you know, um, and you know, like when I'm around her, like I sometimes I like won't tell her the whole truth around like how many paper towels I use or like what I'm like using at home and like the
Yeah.
products, and I'm like, why am I lying about that? And it's just because I'm like oh, I'm feeling shame, you know, because like there's a part of me that I really care about those things and I want to be better about that, and I'm not finding I'm so like 100% with it, but I do my best, you know, like I'm
Mm.
always trying my best there, you know, or doing my best there. But I'm not committed. Maybe I'm not committed to that in the same way that I'm committed to like the mother, you know, so
Mm.
it's just like, so it's interesting, but I do think that as a whole, as a person, to be committed to my truth, it has to be in every area, you know?
Mm.
So I think that whoever's struggling in this area, it's kind of like, well, okay, like it is good to, it's good to look at what the cost is of what you're hiding. You know, like sometimes we hide things out for a good reason, and sometimes there's a time and a place to let those things out, and a way to do it. You know, I'm not saying to just
Mm.
be like blah 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 blah, you know, like
Mm.
all over the place. I do think it does take, you know, coming from a centered place and like really being tactful in how you present your truth, so
Mm.
that it's not to like not alienate people necessarily, but to just keep it your own truth,
Mm.
not like the truth for everyone, you
Mm.
know?
Really
So I
important
think
distinction.
people get scared because they think like, oh, I'm going to tell the truth about this, and then that's who I'm going to be to these people, and they're going to make it wrong and they're going to assess me, you know? We
Mm.
talk about assessments in our group, and they're just going to have a lot of opinions and assessments about me, and that's probably true, you know? People are going to have assessments about you when you speak your truth, and you just get to decide like, well, who are the people that I want to be in my circle? Who are the people that I want, whose truth I want to value? If you're somebody who values every single person's truth, you're probably living in a lot of cages, and it's a losing game, because then you're bending yourself to everyone's expectations, and that's a pretty imprisoned life in my opinion.
Mm.
But it's a choice. You can choose that life and play it safe, you know? Um, and I think when someone can come out and just be like, this is who I am, do people like really usually go like, oh God? I mean, I think people really applaud people who do that in a way that's, like I said, tactful. And when I say tactful, I don't mean like painting a really pretty picture for everyone. I mean, not, like I said, not making it everyone else's truth. Like, I am this person and this is how I am. And so like, I'm stand for everyone being this person. You
Mm.
don't need to bring everyone with you in your truth. Like, I live in a lot of the shadow spaces of motherhood because I feel like a lot of women need to explore those places. And I pride myself on being a safe place for women to be in shadow work around motherhood. But
Mm.
not everyone feels like that when they become a mom. Sometimes their truth is like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. This is like the easiest thing I've ever done. I'm so happy and blissed out.
Mm.
And that's their truth. And if they don't make that my truth, I'm inspired by that. I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful. I haven't experienced that entry into motherhood, but it's so wonderful to know that like that's someone's journey and it wasn't mine. And sometimes that stings, but that doesn't mean that my truth is any less valid than their truth, or
Mm.
like that we can't both have our truth. You know, I really don't like when I go, like when I was really depressed, I would go to this place where I literally thought that everyone felt the way I felt about motherhood. I was like, oh yeah, everyone's suffering. this is hard. No one told us, but is everyone suffering?
Yeah.
And that wasn't true, you know, but it was something I started expressing as my truth. And when I started expressing that truth, other moms would come up and say like, actually my C-section was like a beautiful experience. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it was shocking, which sounds strange, but it's just because I was so embedded in my own experience. It started to help me to hear other people's truth too.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest commitment as a woman who's working with mothers is I never judge the way mothers mother. Like maybe I'll have some assessments. Sure. We all do. But I never go down the road of like, they're wrong. I can't believe they don't co-sleep. I can't believe they did not sleep train. I never like, never. I'm like, how you doing? Is that working for you? It's making you happy, mom? Fantastic. Carry on, you know?
Yeah.
So I think people who are afraid, I think it's just about belonging and just about being who you really are and accepted for who you really are. So just, I mean, I would ask yourself the question, like, are you twisting yourself into a pretzel in order to make sure you're not kicked out of the tribe, you know, or are you really allowing yourself to be fully expressed from an I place, not an us place, but from an I place, and seeing who is going to be attracted to that? Because that's really going to be like, in my opinion, the freest life you can live.
And it doesn't mean you have to necessarily go on like Instagram or Facebook and shout it from the rooftops to everyone you know. It could just
Totally.
be to people like in your close circle and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. It's like, I remember there was this point, I'll share a little personal story with my mentor, like 2 years ago. We had coffee and we still keep in touch and talk and check in. And I was like, Scott, I'm thinking like, I really want to come out as like my spiritual self, It's like, I have this like beautiful spiritual side and like, I don't really show it in my coaching. And I feel like I'm just going to come out and put it out there on social media. He was like, and he said this in his like brilliant way. He told me a little parable, like a true story of what he experienced about him and his spiritual mentor, and his spiritual mentor being in this situation where, I mean, his spiritual mentor is like this incredible man. I've met him. He's incredible. He wrote this book that's like so beautiful, and he's just this amazing Indigenous man. And he told me the story about how this man introduced himself as a carpenter to some people who he just felt he didn't want to have to explain his whole spiritual path to, because they were having all these conversations of spirituality. And Scott said, in that moment, I really respected that, because it's like, he didn't have to say like, oh, I am this Indigenous man who leads all these ceremonies, and like, this is who I am spiritually, so let me show you who I am. Because it was in the space, he literally just was like, I'm just going to introduce myself so like these people can meet me, and like maybe I'll share that if they come across my path, and that's something I want to share. He really held that as sacred. And I feel like sometimes we feel in this like social media age, that we have to come out and just say everything how it is. And what he taught me was like, we can be who we are just by being, just by showing up, just by living who we are. Just like if we want to be an honest person, just showing up honestly in conversation, and then letting that seep through, and then people getting it by who you're being, not who you say you're being, but like just how and who you're being. Just keep being consistent. Just keep showing up. My husband is one of the most integral men I've ever met, because this man will be his word no matter what. Sometimes I freaking hate it, because he's like, I got to go drop off this firewood for this ceremony in Santa Cruz, and I was my word. I got to be my word. I'm like, I know, but you're going to be literally driving for 12 hours. I'm alone with the kids. And like, can't you just cancel and be like, hey, there's wood up there? And he's like, no, because if I'm not my word, when am I, And so everyone counts on my husband when they ask him to do big things, because he's proven that he'll show up. And now people trust him as reliable, just by who he is, just by who he's being, not because he's like, I'm an integrity man or I'm a leader in this community. He's just showing it, So I think that it's not always necessary, like you said, to like live our truth in order to prove our truth. I think it's like, in order to be in service to who we need to like actually be, so that we're not hiding And like you said, that can just be to our family and friends. And we can just, like continue as we are in presenting what we will present on social media, because maybe that's something that's from our truth, but it's not like we need to like splatter our every detail onto our posts.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we do, it's like,
Yeah.
I do both.
Yeah, totally. And on a slightly different segue tact, I guess now, what hurdles have you personally faced and how have you overcome them?
Oh, well, there's been many because I'm 38. But I think the biggest hurdle has been around motherhood. Like this is, I feel like, the kind of the bigger karma of my life and why it's what I do in the world. I think that, like one of my other mentors, Julio Elias, said a long time ago, we're always coaching from our biggest wound, and we always hear this in the industry. But that is actually kind of true for me, as far as like not having that dream realized in the way that I thought. And like, how do I make that okay? Like, how do I make it okay that didn't go down the way that I thought it was going to go down? And the way that I dealt with that in the best way I can say possible in a succinct way is I made it become my learning center. Like motherhood has become my dojo, like where I train every day. My beautiful friend, Tamara Ashleman, just had a conversation with me today, and she calls it, oh God, what did she call it? It was so awesome. And I was like, that is brilliant. She said, like when athletes train at altitude, and they do that at altitude so that when they come out of altitude, they're like incredible down on the ground when they have all the oxygen, right? So she calls motherhood altitude training. She's like, if you can do everything in this, like in this realm, then you can do anything in life. Like, the biggest training ground there is. So I just turned that message to the message, as they say. And it's really been, even when I was in it, when I was like at my most depressed and my most intense part of postpartum depression and anxiety, there was always a knowing inside of me that was like, okay, like this is my vision, my next vision quest, like this is my gift, the medicine that I'm bringing to my people. And this has to be something that I continue to shape from, or else it's going to totally consume me and I'm going to stay a victim forever, So I just think that anytime there is anything that comes up in your life, if you create it to be a learning ground and like an area for growth, it's simple. A lot of people say it, but it's really, for me, true. For me, I think it's been a process, like my son's 4 now and I have another baby now. And it continues to still be that learning ground. And I like that in a way, because it means like, oh, I didn't tackle that and then got it all right and then had another baby. It's like, no, Itzel's just bringing like the second phase of that learning, and she's bringing it in a very different and gentle way.
Yeah.
But she's still illuminating my relationship with Sitka, my son, and that has a whole nother level and charge to it now, as he, is dealing with not being the little prince of the family and not getting all my attention. And I have to split myself in two for them. And it still continues to be this question in my mind, In fact, having the second baby was even more challenging in some ways, because even though I didn't have the major depression and all the trauma this time, because I've really had to sink in deeper to being mother, and what that looks like and what that means. And I've had to be more patient with the service and the medicine, and the service and the medicine is what kind of got me out so much of the funk with Sitka. So it's like I couldn't turn to that as quickly this time. I had to really actually sit in the motherhood seat and really see like, okay, without running to work, how can I really be here and really be what I say I am when I go back to work? And I'm still in that right now, even though I'm back to work, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's good. It's really rich, and it keeps me waking up every morning.
Beautiful. And what has made you feel inspired or makes you feel like your best self?
Hmm. Honestly, it's the when I have wins with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
When I can stop taking it personally, and I can really pull out of that victim mode and just be like, okay, like my kid didn't just spit at me, which happens, by the way. Like
Mm-hmm.
literally, he'll spit in my face.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such a challenge sometimes. But okay, he didn't do that because he's trying to be an a-hole. He's doing that because he's hurting. And like, if I can just get out of the way and really show up, and if he feels like he's heard, it is the most inspiring part of my entire month.
Mm.
Because these little humans, I'm like real good at talking to adults. Like that
Yeah.
took me a while, but I feel like my communication and my languaging is I'm very particular and on point with that, with the communication I have with adults. And then came kids. And then I was like, oh gosh, how do I do this? Because a 4-year-old is just intelligent enough to have a conversation, but to not like grasp the actual like
Yeah.
back and forth of what it means, right? To be in
Yeah.
an actual conversation. So I really just get to like tap into like my bigger senses as a healer and see like, okay, he's trapped in his pain. He's trapped in his hurt. I can't use words. I can't even use play in this moment. So it's just me. It's literally me. It's how I show up, how I center myself, how I am a container for him that's going to count. And when I can be that container and be that leader, because being a leader as a mother is the hardest leadership edge I've ever had. And I've had a lot of leadership edges, but when I can win in that creating that container, that's the most inspiring part of my day and week and year.
Mm. Yeah, I feel that too. 'Cause it can be so tricky to navigate, and because Cole is 4 as well, so I'm totally navigating the that and
Such
just
a funny
starting
time.
kindy as well, navigating his emotions around that, which is really interesting because
Yep.
I've experienced him not necessarily speaking or saying what of course, he doesn't really voice what's going on, so I just like fishing, trying to figure it out,
Yeah,
and get to
it's
the heart of
tricky.
it. Yeah.
And in a few
Um,
minutes, my son will probably run in here and like want all of my attention. So just be ready for that.
okay. um, and what are you curious about right now?
Ooh, fun question. I am so curious about, I am really curious about like trauma work.
Uh-huh.
I want to dig deeper into um, trauma around postpartum time.
Mm-hmm.
And I like one of my passion projects that I've always wanted to do, which I get to do one day, is I want to actually like maybe travel around the world, but definitely get in touch with cultures around the world and just see what all their postnatal practices are, and
Oh,
to see what women do and how women are held in different areas of the world to prevent women from going into deep dark holes after becoming moms. And so that is holding a lot of curiosity.
mm,
I'm very curious about where we're going to live next, because my
yeah.
husband and I are considering leaving California,
Oh,
and we've lived here our whole couple lives. So that's exciting. We've always dreamt about having land and living in community with some family of ours, chosen family and regular family.
yeah.
Um, I am so curious about new ways in which our coaching industry can kind of emerge from a little bit of the mundane kind of sameness, like, you know, I feel like it's gotten a little gray and dreary around like the offers being so similar and so repetitive. And I would love to see more creativity in how we produce results and connect with people.
Mm,
Um, I'm curious as to how that's going to shift, because I feel that there's a little bit of a lull, and that always produces a great breakdown for new emerging craft. Yeah, I think those are like my big ones right now.
Amazing. It's amazing things to be curious about. And what's your favorite book and why? In just a few words.
Oh, fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, either. I mean, I usually automatically think of nonfiction, but fiction's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my all-time favorite nonfiction book was The Time Traveler's Wife.
Okay.
But I read that at a time where I moved to New York, and I was in a very dreamy space when I was 22, I think. But I love that. I love that book. And then, oh gosh, right now I'm on fire about this book, The Fourth Trimester by Kimberly Ann Johnson. It's, I mean, of course, my mom world. It's such an innovative and incredible look at postpartum. And she talks a lot about the things I love, like rites of passage and pelvic floor repair, which is actually like totally unknown in the United States. Whereas like in France, for example, they have, it's part of what's covered, and you're actually required to like go check that out. Yeah, it's a really revolutionary book. I also want to share another one that's actually been changing my life. And it's called How to Raise a Spirited Child, for any parents out there who are like raising a child who has a lot of energy and is super sensitive. And this is my first child. You know, he's incredible, so creative, so intelligent, so full on, but like he requires a lot of really digging deep inside of myself. He's my karmic teacher forever. I love him so much. So like it's really been a beautiful handbook to really see the beauty of who he is, and like that there's actually a little bit different rules that apply when you have a child that's at that level of energy, and not like the child who thrives on cooperation and harmony. Like he actually thrives on integrity and fight, you know? So for the parents out there who have that child, you're not crazy. You're not a bad parent. I have like a totally different child the second time, who's totally different. And I think just every child has its own flavor and gives us what we need. So that's another one of the books I'm really,
I think
really
I might have to look that one up.
It's great.
Excuse me. And then, okay, there are a few fun ones in here now, but room, desk, or car, which would you clean first?
Wait, which one? Sorry, what were the choices?
Like your room, your desk, or your car?
Oh, my room, my desk, or my car? My room. I'm such a homebody. And I love my room so much.
And what profession other than your own would you love to attempt?
Oh, chef. I would be a chef in a minute. I love cooking. And I'm obsessed with Top Chef, and like I always watch and pretend I'm one of them. A chef or a midwife. But I can't stand the sight of blood, so in this lifetime I will never be a midwife. But those two, midwife or chef. I mean, but chef, I would love to be a chef. I'm just, the creativity involved in cooking is just so, I miss it because I'm so busy with the kids. It's hard to make really great meals, but I do my best.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you?
Oh, I'm kind of boring, I would say. Maybe a 5. Well, it depends who you're asking. So like if you're asking a Californian, I'm pretty normal. But if you're asking someone, let's say, who's like a gun-toting Midwesterner who's like a Christian, I am a 10. Weird. Like, super weird. I like go to sweat lodge, play, like TV ceremony. I like howl with the wind. I go to full moon things. I'm hippie for life. Like definitely weird for those people. So
and what did you wish you'd known when you first started out? And I guess that could be in terms of coaching or in terms of even being a mother, whatever comes alight for you with that question.
What do I wish I had known? I guess that I didn't have to prove myself. I think I spent a good chunk of the first part of my coaching career, and even a good chunk again once I like declared my path as a motherhood coach, proving myself, and like really not from a place of like I'm good enough, but from a place of like, I know I can help you. I get so impassioned of like, I can help you. Like, I literally am like, I am that weirdo. I'm a 10 on the weirdo scale at the grocery store when a woman's pregnant, and I'm like, oh my God, what are you do? How can I support you? Like, I'm just obsessed with like helping new moms, So it's just, yeah. I think now I just let things flow from like how much I actually care. And it's so peaceful, and I'm really enjoying my work now in a way I never have. And so it feels so good and clean. And, I know I can't be everything to everyone, even my clients. And like, I know I can only show up when I can show up. And when I do, I just give it 1,000%, So I think the proving, I would love to just kick that to the curb from the get-go. But that's been a nice decade of learning.
Yeah. And what would you say to that fresh young Kari that's just like starting out?
I would just say, God, and I would say this to everyone, like, I would say, listen, you were born with the medicine that you were meant to share. It will reveal itself the more you just honor who you are. And you've already had it this whole time. So you don't have to do anything to actually let it breathe and live. It'll take on a life of its own. You just keep listening and following your nose, and just keep loving and keep caring the way you do, and everything will reveal itself in time. Like, there's nothing you have to figure out. That would have been a huge help for past Kari.
Yeah, I think that could be useful for so many people.
Probably.
And if you could remove all barriers and constraints, what project would you love to work on and want to be known for?
I was thinking about this the other day. I would love to have like a huge conference of like birth workers and light workers that were all focused on motherhood, and just have like literally a weekend where women can come and just receive like all of the healings, the teachings, the lovings of like all of these women who have been in the healing arts of motherhood, and one day I'll do that, but it's a big endeavor. So I'm waiting till my baby's at least a year or two where that happens. So, and I think my big baby just walked in the door.
Well, I'm just wrapping up now, so there's just a couple more if you can squeeze them in.
I mean, we might get a little voice coming in, but that's okay with me. If it's okay,
that's fine. That's my life. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
You know what? It literally just happened yesterday. My husband looked up when I came in the door with the baby, and I'm like, okay, let's take you out of the thing and change your diaper, and then we'll get you fed. And he looked up at me. He goes, "You're such a good mom." And I was like, I literally was like about to cry.
Mommy, look it.
Hey, sweetheart. Oh my goodness. I'm just finishing this call. Oh my God, how exciting.
Happy's birthday.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait. Can we read these in a second? I'm finishing up this call.
No, I'm staying.
You could stay. Thank you, Maggie. Where were we?
I love it. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh, what were we literally talking about? I forgot. That's so funny.
The best compliment you ever received.
Oh yes, that I'm a good mom. That's it.
Yeah, perfect.
That's always the one when people give me credit for coaching or whatever it may be. I'm like, oh, thank you. I really take it in. But when someone says, wow, I really admire the way you mother, it's just every time I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, I really take that one in on a big level.
And what's one thing your work's done for someone, for a client, that you didn't expect?
Oh, that's a great question. I've been like going through my Rolodex of people I've worked with now in my head. Let's see. Oh, that's a tough one to think about. Like, who do I think? When you go blank on your accomplishments, but then you go, you can draw on here, babe. But then, like, when you do something good, you're like, oh, what was that thing? Let me think about that. It's kind of like a theme more than it is like one thing,
Sure.
which is like when I was really like when I was leading more leadership work from others, it was more leadership intensive, you know, and I would like really get them into their vision and help them accomplish these visions. It was like when like the biggest compliment for me was like when they would say like, wow, like that wasn't at all what I wanted with my life. Like all I really wanted was to actually like I feel like I trust myself again, you know, and I feel like I like trust spirit and I trust everything and I trust the unknown. And that to me is just like, oh, the best. And that's been like kind of the theme of quite a few women that I've worked with. And that's always my favorite result.
Yeah.
I did have this one woman who wanted to like break out. It was before I was coaching moms only, but she wanted to break out in a franchise. She had a Pilates studio and she wanted like, and I was like, okay, well, I'll help you with that, you know, and that's kind of where we started. And then she started having these honest conversations with her whole family and like just cleaning house of like becoming her authentic self, like really just living her raw truth, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then she was like, I don't care about that franchise. All I want to do is continue doing this in my life. I feel the most free and most amazing I've ever felt in my life. And I was like, oh my God. And this is someone I'd known for quite a while. So it was such a gift to do that work with her.
Wow, what a shift. And what does elevating your life and soul mean to you?
You know, I think for me, that's like it's just like an everyday thing. It's like elevating my life. Like some people look at elevating as like, oh, I'm up leveling or I'm getting to that next phase. And like, that's important to me too. But if it's not on the daily for me, it puts me in this future orientation and this lack orientation. So for me, like when I can live every day feeling satisfied for a week or more, I'm like, oh, that's living my best life. Because sometimes that's hard, you know, like sometimes that can be tricky to like be in that state, that high vibration. But when I feel like I win, when I'm like in a good vibrational state for like 2 weeks solid, and then, you know, sometimes that gets cracked and then I have to get back on the horse, but I feel like that's just life. And that's the richness of life.
Yeah.
So elevating is always for me about like, okay, how can I live like the next few days at my very best and staying so present to those days. And that's always like my biggest goal is like, just how present can I be with my joy?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then one last.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You can bring her. Sorry, 1 second. Mom.
No, that's okay.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I went over. I got all the babies now.
Oh, beautiful. That's so cute. Oh, you're cute. I just have one last question before you can. I'll get you to share how people can connect with you.
Okay.
And that's just, is there anything else you wish I'd asked that I didn't?
Good question. You know, not really. I think your questions are amazing, and
Thank you.
I feel like we came to like some really beautiful conversations, and I feel like this was a great chat.
Right, I loved it too. I absolutely loved it. And how can people connect with you?
I mean, I'm mostly on social media. So at Kari Azuma on Instagram and Kari Azuma on Facebook. I do have a group called the Conscious Mothers Co-op in Facebook. I'm not in it as much as I used to be, but there are some great moms in there that if, you know, you wanted a village to connect to, that's a beautiful group.
Yeah.
And right now I'm leading a program with you,
Yes.
which is called the Integrated Woman, which is so fun. And I'm just really loving that exploration myself since it's our first round of doing it. But you know, mostly like I feel like I'm just I get to be like just a little voice or big voice, I guess, sometimes for the mamas out there who are not getting to speak into their truth. So if you're really looking for some cathartic love around your motherhood experience, I just highly suggest hanging out with me on social media and reach out too, because I love hearing from people personally.
Yeah, amazing. And I'll link all this in the show notes so people can easily connect with you. Thank you so much. I've loved this. It's been amazing. I'm really, really grateful.
Oh, my pleasure, Mala. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I hope you have a really amazing day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I will see you soon.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you like it, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you love this episode, please give it an honest review on iTunes and let me know what you loved and what you want more of. Your feedback helps me truly elevate the show into something that really serves you and allows me to keep pouring my heart and soul into it. This is for you. Let's rise together. And remember, know your value, know your worth. I love you, beautiful soul.